They say that some teachings are whispered only in the dark, shared not with crowds, but with the few who were ready to hear them. And among all the disciples who walked with Jesus, one seemed to draw out these hidden revelations more than any other: Thomas. The same Thomas who asked questions no one else dared to voice. The same Thomas entrusted with sayings that would vanish for nearly 2,000 years. Tonight, we open the door to one of the most controversial and misunderstood lines in all of mystical Christianity. Saying 114 of the Gospel of Thomas. A statement Jesus is said to have spoken only to Thomas, a statement about women so provocative, so cryptic, that scholars and spiritual seekers have wrestled with it for decades. Some dismissed it as offensive, others called it symbolic, and a rare few sensed that behind its riddle lies a key to understanding the nature of the soul, the path to spiritual wholeness, and the secret role of the divine feminine in ancient esoteric teachings. But here's the truth. Saying 114 is not what it appears to be. It is not a denigration of women, nor a literal instruction. It is a code, a veiled message, a map pointing to the reconciliation of opposites, masculine and feminine, inner and outer, earthly and divine. In this video, we will peel back the layers of this enigmatic teaching. We will journey into the desert of early Christian mysticism, explore the hidden symbolism woven into the Gospel of Thomas, and uncover why Jesus reserved this particular teaching for Thomas alone. You'll learn why this saying was misunderstood for centuries, what it reveals about the soul's transformation, and how its real meaning can profoundly shift your understanding of identity, power, and spiritual integration. So take a breath, steady your mind, and prepare to step into a realm where the literal dissolves, the symbolic awakens, and the forgotten teachings of the Master come alive once more. Let us begin. To understand why saying 114 stands like a riddle carved into the stone of early Christian mysticism, we must journey back, far beyond the familiar churches, councils, and doctrines, into a world where spiritual seekers roamed deserts, debated in hidden chambers, and guarded revelations as fiercely as treasure. The Gospel of Thomas itself emerged from this shadowed landscape, a text not shaped for public liturgy, but for those hungry for direct experience. Its sayings vibrate with an older rhythm, closer to the breath of the teacher than the later writings shaped by institutions. This text was discovered in 1945 near Nag Hammadi, buried in a sealed jar, as if its custodians knew the world was not yet ready for what it contained. Among its pages lay sayings, unlike anything in the canonical Gospels, brief, enigmatic, almost Zen-like in their design. Rather than telling a story of Jesus, Thomas records his utterances, raw and unadorned, inviting the reader to unlock their meaning. In this collection of 114 sayings, the final line, saying 114, stands out like a deliberate enigma at the very end, as though challenging the seeker. If you understood everything before this, now decipher this. So why this placement? Why this wording? And why Thomas? In ancient esoteric schools, the final teaching was often the hardest, not because it was complicated, but because it required the initiate to see beyond language itself. Early Gnostic circles believed Thomas symbolized the twin, not merely the twin of Jesus, as some traditions suggest, but the twin of every seeker, the part of us capable of recognizing the divine spark within. Thomas receives teachings others do not, because he represents the one who questions, who refuses easy answers, who peels away appearances to find the essence beneath. Saying 114, on its surface, appears blunt, even unsettling. But in the mystical traditions of the ancient Near East, statements like these were not meant to be taken literally. They were koans, paradoxical utterances designed to shock the mind out of habitual thinking. Hidden in these sayings were teachings on the nature of duality, the structure of the psyche, and the journey toward inner unity. Much like in Hermeticism, where the reconciliation of opposites is the path to mastery, or in Kabbalah, where the masculine and feminine aspects of the divine must be harmonized, the Gospel of Thomas speaks in symbols, light and shadow, inner and outer, male and female. The early church, however, tended to favor clarity, hierarchy, and doctrinal consistency. Ambiguous mystical teachings posed a challenge. They could not be easily standardized, and they empowered the individual seeker over the institution. This is one reason Thomas, along with other mystical writings, quietly slipped out of mainstream tradition. Not forbidden outright, but simply lost. Misplaced in deserts, sealed in jars, remembered only in whispers among monks and ascetics. But to the mystics, those who sought not merely belief, but transformation, texts like Thomas preserved the inner path Jesus taught, a path concerned not with external rituals, but with the alchemy of the soul. Saying 114, with its bold and perplexing language about making the feminine male, is a product of this world, a statement encoded with spiritual psychology, meant for those ready to look beyond the literal. And now, with the sands of centuries brushed aside, we can revisit this forgotten teaching, not with fear or confusion, but with the eyes of the initiate, prepared to decode the symbols and rediscover what they were truly pointing toward, to truly understand. Saying 114, we must first step into the mindset of the ancient mystics who heard these words, not as members of a religion, but as students of an inner science. For them, Jesus was not simply a preacher. He was a revealer of hidden structures in the human soul. And when he spoke, he often did so in layers, a literal layer for the many, and a symbolic transformational layer for the few. Saying 114 is one of these layered teachings. The text reads, in essence, Simon Peter said to them, "Let Mary leave us, for women are not worthy of life." Jesus said, "I myself shall lead her to make her male, so that she too may become a living spirit, resembling you, males. For every woman who makes herself male will enter the kingdom of heaven." To read this without context is to misunderstand it entirely. This is not a statement about gender. It is a statement about energetic polarity. The ancient belief that every human being contains both a receptive, intuitive principle, symbolized by the feminine, and a directive, active principle, symbolized by the masculine. These were understood not as biological qualities, but as inner forces tied to consciousness. In mystical traditions across the world, from Taoist alchemy to Egyptian temple teachings, spiritual awakening requires harmonizing these forces. The feminine within is the inner world, intuition, feeling, imagination, depth. The masculine within is the outward expression, will, clarity, action, direction. To make the feminine male is not to reject the feminine, but to transform passivity into agency, to awaken the dormant potency within. In the ancient symbolic language Jesus and Thomas were accustomed to, male meant the activated principle, the soul that has awakened from unconsciousness. Meanwhile, female, in this symbolic framework, referred to the unactivated principle, the aspect of the self still receptive, potential filled, but not yet realized. For early mystics, salvation was not about gender at all. It was about moving from unawareness to awareness, from potential to embodiment, from inner longing to inner authority. This is why Jesus responds to Peter, not by dismissing women, but by overturning his statement entirely. He declares that Mary, representing the intuitive and receptive aspect of the soul, can be made male, meaning fully awakened, fully empowered, fully alive. He is saying something radical for his time. The receptive soul can be transformed into a living spirit with agency, wisdom, and power. The feminine principle can ascend, awaken, and stand equal. This interpretation aligns perfectly with the rest of the Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus speaks repeatedly of unity, integration, and the dissolving of duality. Earlier sayings declare, "When you make the two one, then you will enter the kingdom." This is the real context of saying 114. It is not an outlier. It is the culmination. Jesus is teaching Thomas that the kingdom is not reached through belief, lineage, or ritual, but through inner alchemy, through the integration of opposites, through becoming whole. Imagine the psyche as a lamp with two halves, one half filled with oil, potential, the other with flame, initiation. The oil alone cannot shine. The flame alone cannot burn. Only when they merge does illumination occur. This is the essence of saying 114. The woman symbolizes the unlit oil, the raw potential of the soul. The man symbolizes the flame, the conscious activation of that potential. To make the woman male is to light the lamp of the inner self. This is why Jesus speaks this teaching to Thomas. The twin saw, the one who represents the mirror of the seeker. Thomas receives the teaching because this transformation is not theoretical. It is personal. It is the journey of every soul. Saying 114 is not a doctrine. It is a map, one encrypted in the symbolic language of mysticism. And once we begin reading it through the eyes of the ancients, its harsh exterior dissolves, revealing something far more profound, a pathway towards spiritual sovereignty and the awakening of the living spirit within. In the next section, we will dive deeper, exploring why this teaching was hidden, what it means for the modern seeker, and how its symbolism echoes across other esoteric traditions. As we move deeper into saying 114, we begin to see that the true controversy arose not from the teaching itself, but from the way later readers approached it, literally rather than symbolically. The ancient mystics who preserved these sayings expected the seeker to read with an inner ear, listening not for surface meaning, but for resonance within their own experience. And when we do that, the saying begins to reveal layers that shake the very structure of identity. Let's return to a crucial observation. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus repeatedly challenges the idea of division. He speaks of removing the separation between inner and outer, of bringing what is above into what is below, and of making male and female into a single one. Saying 114 is simply the final echo of this theme, its most potent expression. But why does Jesus frame this final teaching through the conversation between Peter, Mary, and Thomas? Peter represents the old consciousness, the mindset of hierarchy, rigidity, and external forms. Mary represents the intuitive, inner knowing principle, the soul's capacity to receive revelation. Thomas represents the reconciler, the one capable of holding paradox without collapsing into confusion. This triad is deliberate. It dramatizes the tension between exoteric religion and esoteric knowledge. Peter's statement, dismissive and literal, symbolizes the old world. Jesus' reply, symbolic and alchemical, symbolizes the new. And Thomas, silent, watching, absorbing, symbolizes us. Saying 114 becomes a teaching about the inner marriage of opposites. For centuries, esoteric traditions across cultures described the great work as a union of masculine and feminine principles. In Hermetic philosophy, the philosophical androgen symbolizes the perfected human, transcending duality. In Kabbalah, the marriage of Teferet, the sun, and Shekinah, the divine feminine, restores cosmic harmony. In Taoist alchemy, the interplay of yin and yang produces the golden elixir, the awakened spirit. In Gnostic texts, Sophia, wisdom, rises when united with the Logos, divine reason. All of these traditions echo the same message. Wholeness arises through integration, not division. Saying 114 fits this pattern seamlessly. When Jesus says he will make merry male, he is not erasing the feminine. He is elevating it, transforming receptivity into realization. The key is that nothing is lost. Rather, the inner world is infused with consciousness. The unconscious becomes conscious. The latent becomes active. The mystical becomes embodied. This is why Jesus adds, so that she too may become a living spirit. In ancient esoteric vocabulary, a living spirit is not a person who simply exists. It is someone whose inner nature has awakened, someone who acts from presence rather than conditioning. Now, let's address a common misconception. Some people assume Thomas's gospel promotes a male-dominant viewpoint, but this interpretation collapses once you enter the symbolic worldview of the time. In mystical language, male does not mean masculine in a social sense. It means I'm fully realized and fully integrated, fully alive. The feminine principle is not inferior. It is the raw material of transformation. Think of the seed buried in the soil. The soil is receptive, dark, nurturing, feminine. The seed carries the spark of emergence, masculine. Only together do they produce life. The mystics understood this. Modern readers often do not. Consider another angle. Why is this the final saying in the Gospel of Thomas? Why end with a statement that is deliberately enigmatic? Because the teaching is not meant to be answered. It is meant to be activated. The final saying acts like a seal on a scroll, challenging the seeker. Do you cling to appearances, or can you pierce the veil of symbolism? Thomas is the one who gets it, the one who sees beyond surfaces. In some Gnostic traditions, he is called the disciple of inner knowledge. This is why Jesus addresses the deepest teaching to him. Not because he is superior, but because he represents the capacity within each of us to see past duality, past gender, past literalism, and into essence. And essence is what saying 114 is really about. At its heart, the teaching is a call to transformation, a reminder that the kingdom is not a place one enters, but a state one becomes. It is a shift from passivity to sovereignty, from fragmentation to unity, from potential to presence. In the next section, we will take this ancient wisdom out of symbolic space and into lived reality. Because mystical teachings mean nothing if they do not change the way you walk, breathe, choose, and awaken. Ancient teachings are only alive when they are lived. Saying 114 is not meant to remain an intellectual puzzle or a mystical curiosity. It is an instruction, a method of inner alchemy designed to awaken the living spirit Jesus speaks of. And while its language is symbolic, its application can be profoundly practical. So how do we take this esoteric teaching and bring it into daily life? Let's begin with the core principle. Transforming the passive into the active, the hidden into the conscious, the receptive into the realized. In modern psychological terms, this resembles integrating the unconscious, bringing buried feelings, instincts, and intuitions into the light of awareness so they can guide us rather than sabotage us. Here are 3 practices drawn from ancient mysticism that embody this transformation. 1. The practice of inner observation. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus often speaks of seeing what is hidden, of knowing yourself. This self-knowing is the feminine principle, receptive, inward, quiet. But when observation becomes active, when you witness your emotions without being ruled by them, you are making the feminine male. Try this. At least once a day, pause for a moment. Observe your current emotional state without judgment. Ask yourself, what is arising in me right now? Anxiety, frustration, inspiration, desire. Instead of reacting, simply watch. This act, the witnessing of the inner world, is the ignition of consciousness. It is the spark entering the depths of the soul. 2. Working with the inner dualities. We all carry opposites within us: confidence and fear, clarity and confusion, strength and vulnerability. Most people try to suppress one side and cling to the other, but the mystics teach integration, not suppression. A powerful exercise. Write down 2 opposing qualities within yourself. One you embrace, one you avoid. Then, explore how they depend on each other. Vulnerability gives rise to courage. Confusion precedes insight. Softness deepens strength. When you stop rejecting one side, the polarity begins to unite. This union is the symbolic marriage spoken of across mystical traditions, and it is the inner meaning of saying 114. 3. Transforming intuition into action. The feminine within is intuitive, imaginative, and sensitive, but intuition becomes power only when it moves into expression. The masculine principle is not dominance, it is direction. Each day, take one intuitive impulse, just one, and act on it. It might be calling someone you feel drawn to contact, writing down a sudden idea, or making a small decision guided by inner knowing, rather than logic alone. This small act turns latent insight into embodied wisdom. You are taking what is potential and making it real. How this changes your life. As you practice these disciplines, something subtle begins to shift. You notice that your emotions no longer control you. You witness them. Your inner contradictions stop tearing you apart. They begin to speak to each other. Your intuition stops whispering from the background. It becomes a compass. This is the awakening of the living spirit, not an abstract concept, but a lived experience. You become more whole, more centered, more courageous. The world around you begins to feel less like a battlefield and more like a mirror. Overcoming common pitfalls. This path is not without obstacles. The first is impatience, the desire for instant transformation. Remember, alchemy is slow, deliberate, steady. The second is self-judgment. Many people abandon inner work when they uncover difficult emotions. But this is where the real work happens, the moment the unconscious rises into awareness. Finally, beware of taking the symbolism literally. This teaching is not about gender. It is about inner architecture. Men and women alike carry both principles and must awaken both. Saying 114 invites you into a lifelong practice, the art of uniting your inner forces so that your soul becomes not divided, but whole, not dormant, but alive, not waiting for salvation, but embodying it. When you are ready, we will close this journey with a conclusion that ties together the threads of history, symbolism, and transformation, and leaves you with a question only you can answer. We have journeyed through the sands of forgotten history, through the symbolic language of the mystics, and into the living heart of a teaching whispered only to Thomas, the disciple who represents the seeker in each of us. Now, as we reach the end of this exploration, something becomes clear. Saying 114 was never meant to divide. It was meant to awaken. The saying carries a riddle wrapped in ancient language, but beneath that surface lies a message as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. You are not meant to remain dormant. The parts of you that feel hidden, passive, uncertain, or unexpressed are not weaknesses. They are the soil of transformation. They are Mary, waiting to be awakened, lifted, activated by the light of consciousness. When Jesus says he will make her male, he is speaking to every one of us. He is pointing to the alchemy by which you convert your quiet intuitions into bold steps, your inner world into outer expression, your potential into power. This is the kingdom, not a place beyond the stars, but a state in which the soul becomes whole, unified, and alive. You have learned how ancient mystics read these teachings, how symbolic language hides profound psychological truths, and how the Gospel of Thomas preserves the inner path, one aimed not at blind belief, but direct transformation. And perhaps now you can see why this teaching was placed last. It is not merely an ending, it is an invitation. Because the real question is not what saying 114 meant 2 millennia ago. The real question is what it means for you today. Which part of your inner world is still waiting to be awakened? What potential lies dormant within you, asking to be expressed? What would your life look like if every fragmented piece of you became unified, conscious, and whole? As you reflect on these questions, remember, ancient teachings are not relics, they are mirrors. And the Gospel of Thomas, especially its final line, was designed to show the seeker their own face, their own path, their own hidden power. If this journey stirred something within you, share your thoughts, your questions, and the insights you discovered. And if you feel called to explore more of these forgotten teachings, sacred symbols, and esoteric truths, this channel is your gateway. Until we meet again, walk with awareness, seek with courage, and let the hidden become revealed. The alchemy has already begun.